Oh, sorry, Vern. Didn't mean to wake you up. I just didn't want you to miss today's big entertainment extravaganza. That's right, Vern. Today's the big day when your old buddy Ernest P Worrell will go down in those big fake history books. Just think, Vern. Kids in the future will have my name as one of the multiple choices on all their history exams, like below the equator or textiles or even none of the above. Well, going back to sleep, Vern. You still got a couple hours. Oh, and Vern, I like you, little bear. Blue bear.
Welcome to Three Films and a Podcast, the show where destiny brought together three friends to enhance each other's cinematic journey by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. There is no claim of ownership on any film footage used in this episode, as all film footage is owned in its entirety by the copyright holders. And just like every car in Too Fast, Too Furious, this podcast contains spoilers. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome back to Season 2 of Three Films and a Podcast, the show where destiny commanded three friends to challenge each other's cinematic persuasion by watching three new movies in a series of themed rounds. My name is Matt Weiler, coming to you from Pleasant Grove, Utah, and I'm joined as always by Tyler Beck in Portland, Oregon.
Hello, everybody.
And we have Ben Lawhorn up in Salt Lake City.
Ben?
Ben?
Has anyone seen Ben?
Ben? Looks like Ben is not with us tonight. We'll have to figure out where he's at.
My Iron Man, my Cal Ripken, he failed me.
The one thing we could count on. But for those of you who are new to the show, or those of you who are returning, our goal as a podcast is to establish an active movie club in this online community. What started as a movie discussion in a group chat has evolved into a podcast with the intent of including you, yes you, in our growing movie club community. On social media, we are at 3filmspod, and you can find us and all of our merch and our Patreon at 3filmspod.com. Today, we are lucky enough to be joined by our friends from the 88 Mile Per Hour podcast, Santos and Freddie.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's going on, guys?
What's up, guys?
What's happening?
What's happening?
Yeah, I was talking to you guys a little bit before we started recording, but I listened to your half-baked episode like almost literally right before we started recording, and then I jump on this with you guys. So it's kind of went from in my head to in my eyes, and it's a treat. It's nice to have you guys.
We are here finally.
Yeah, man. Well,
it's nice. Yeah. Yes, it's us.
Yeah, we're happy to be here, you guys.
Nice, hell yeah.
We're stoked to have you.
I know where your friend's at, bro.
Where is he?
The Tro got him.
Oh,
the troll, yes.
Oh,
I wanted to say that, but I'm like, I don't want to interrupt the intro.
No,
like
please.
That's your guys' show. No. Like I stayed quiet. I'm like, nah, I gotta wait till you intro.
No, this
we
is our show now.
We typically try to find it, work some sort of funny tie into the movie in the intros. But the only thing I could think to do was do an Ernest impression, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna subject
just
everyone
say, hey, Vern,
to that.
and you're all, hey, Vern.
Hey,
know what I
Vern.
mean?
You know what I mean? I haven't heard that in a while till today. I mean, I just this was good. I was like, wow, because I grew up watching him on, in the commercials in 80s.
Yeah.
I was an 80s kid, and he was just hilarious.
It was something.
He can sell you anything. It's just so funny. Hey, Vern. You like this, Vern? What are you doing?
He's a charming dude.
Oh, just hilarious. Just and he was good friends with Robin Williams.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were good friends.
Huh. Well, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves, about your podcast, so that everyone can kind of get to know where you guys are coming from a little bit.
Santos.
All right. So 88 Miles Per Hour podcast stems back to 2014 is when it originally started. It was a version of another podcast that I currently do with my brother. And it was the Brothers Bear podcast, where we talk all geek related stuff, news, whatever the hell we want to talk about. And we look back almost like this, where we talk about whatever, even growing up and so on and so forth. But I love the 80s a lot. I'm all about the 80s and movies and music and toys, all that stuff. So it always became the gag on the show where I get made fun because, that's the 80s guy, and blah, blah, blah. At that point, it's when I started developing just do a side podcast. So at the time, I knew someone where we got together and we created the 88 Miles Per Hour podcast. It's all just 80s. At that point, when we started doing it, it was strictly 80s, nothing before 80, nothing 90. If we even started the conversation, dude, I was so strict on it. No, gotta stay 80s, everything
Wrong
80s.
decade.
Yeah. And then at that point, my co-host, who was Renata, she ended up taking off. And I brought in one of my friends named Max, and we started co-hosting. Then I brought another friend, a coworker, who also loved the 80s, and her name was Chelsea. She came on. So it was us three. Then at that point, we took a break from the show because things got really hectic, life and everything. And then Max brought it back for a while with Chelsea. And then they had a while where then I finally got the show back because it had more availability. So they took off, started their own thing, whatever. And I brought back 88. Needed a co-host because I don't want to do it by myself. I'm like, I can't do that. Nah. And then that's when I knew Freddie because I interviewed him back when from Brothers Bear podcast days where he came in studio. We talked about music because he's, he'll tell you about himself. And at that point, I was like, you know what? He's all about Depeche Mode. I want to do Depeche Mode 101, the documentary. I brought him on and he was like, hey, bro, like, I love this. If you ever want to use me again, like, hit me up. COVID happened. He wasn't doing any concerts, tours. So I brought him on. And since then, this guy's been doing the show with me. And yeah, and it's pretty much now what the show is. It's no longer about 80s. It's really just, as we put it, we hop into a DeLorean and travel back in time to revisit the stuff that we grew up with and what we love. And, we'll try to, we'll talk about life stories, stuff that happens, and it's like the last episode by the time this post, maybe, I don't know if it'll be up, but it's White Castle. We did a Harold and Kumar go to White Castle.
The first half, you did do it. Because in your Half-Baked episode, you were debating whether or not you would do it or not.
Yeah, no. Well, we did do it, but the first half, we just talk. We randomly talk. We actually talk about how we discovered, like, going to White Castle, eating there, blah, blah, blah. So it's never just strictly the movie. And then at the end, I always provide a song of the week. It's just stuff that before it was always all 80s, like my mix of 80s music. Now it's a mixture of stuff that I love, just to introduce people like, hey, here's some stuff, check it out. And yeah, so that's, 88, that's what it is. And, I'm from the beginning till now, I'm the main host, but I have my co-host, and Freddie will tell you about himself.
Yeah, well, it's been a great ride since the pandemic. And that's like Santos mentioned, I'm a full-time musician. I do a tribute to Depeche Mode. Been doing that for 10 years. I'm a full-time musician, DJ, producer. So my life is music and film. And when we started doing this, I was like, wow, this is something I really would like to participate in. Because I grew up with, I was an 80s kid. I grew up I was an MTV kid. I was the first, all of that, the movie that we're reviewing today. I mean, I grew up watching him in commercials. So all of this stuff, I can share my stories and kind of revisit how I felt back then when I would experience these 80s icons and, movies and stuff. So
it's funny you say, like, I've had this conversation with a few people. They'll ask me like, oh, how have you been recently? I'm like, things are going really well. And they'll say like, that's a weird thing to say during a pandemic like this. Right. But it seems like for a lot of people, it's opened some doors to some stuff that maybe you wouldn't have had access to or wouldn't have had exposure to.
Yeah. Well, I think the pandemic really opened up our brains because we have brains that we can actually we're creative human beings, and we had to do something to escape the darkness that was among us. And I'm a very creative person, so I had to really, to be sane person in this world today, I really had to just dig in. And it reminded me when I was a kid in my bedroom, creating these projects, a band or doing a painting, so I went back to that during the pandemic, and it really helped me. That's why I said it feels, how you doing? It feels great. Well, I feel great. I feel great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like shit. Excuse the word.
Sure. I mean,
can we?
You
curse?
can curse here. Yeah.
Okay.
You just have to answer to Matt's dad, Steve.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Well, we can.
I'll forward the hate mail.
I didn't want to feel like poop anymore, so I wanted to kind of just reach out and really dig deep in the creative process of our brains. And I I've done so many things now. The show 88 miles per hour has been, part of my life now, and I don't want to leave it. It's kind of been a part of my life. It saved me from being in this darkness. It saved me from like just being around and escaping for a few hours, and I'm pretty sure that's how you guys felt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had this little movie club, like we talk about in the intro, just the three of us. We'd have like a group chat. And then Ben, who's not with us here tonight, he was like, why don't we just like do this on tape and record it and put it out as a podcast? And sort of went from there. And, like I don't live in the same state as those guys. And so it's helped me stay connected to them, and just, I can log on and we could talk about some movies for a while and work on something creative together. And yeah, it's been a blast. And I think, I think kind of like we talked about, I think eventually, despite all the negative things that the pandemic and everything that we're going through has brought about, like, I do think perspectives will change a little bit in the way that we view how we connect, and the availability of the connection. I think we'll start to appreciate that, or it's really driving home that appreciation for me anyways.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I appreciate that we're able to do this.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
I mean,
because you guys are on the West Coast somewhere, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's West Coast.
Yeah. So it's
LA,
like,
Los Angeles.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
So
bro, you're more Hollywood. Eh? You're like in Hollywood. That's where this guy's at.
Yeah. But I mean, I grew up in LA.
We're like LA kids, right?
Yeah, we're LA kids. I mean, I grew up in, like Long Beach area, Southgate, and then I lived in Glendale, Pasadena area, and then I lived in Santa Monica for a while, and then I live in West Hollywood. So I'm an LA kid. But we would have had the opportunity to do something like this, right, maybe even a few years ago, So
of course, it's pretty rad.
Yeah, that's true.
We're stoked to have you guys on. We're grateful for you guys joining us. And every time I host, I do a small exercise for our listeners, and it's just kind of set the tone for the movie that we're about to talk about. And anyways, here we go. It's a cold October 1991. You're at the movies with your buddies, and the vote is unanimous on what you're going to see. You're going to see the one where the actor, who is a household name, helps prevent an invasion in an American suburb. Whoa. I'm not talking about Suburban Commando with Hollywood Hogan. I'm talking about Ernest Scared Stupid, starring Jim Varney.
None other than Jim Varney.
Yes. I wish we were doing that one too, bro. I love that movie. With Christopher Lloyd and what's her name? The olive oil. I can't think of it. Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, Shelley Duvall. I picked this movie for our Halloween round because it's a movie that my buddy had on VHS, and there was probably a 3-year period of time where we watched this like every day during Halloween time, and I loved it. And then I went like 30 years without seeing it. So
here we are today.
Yeah. So here we are today. I finally had an opportunity to impose it on somebody else. I had to see it again. But I'm curious what your guys' experience are with this movie. If it was a first time viewing, if you remember it, what are your guys' first impressions?
I'll let Freddie go first, because my assumption is he's never seen it before. So I was excited for this. Like, if it wasn't for this pod, I would have done this for our series and had him watch this movie. So I'll let him go first.
That's great.
Nah, okay. I'll be honest. I've never seen this movie.
Okay.
I do know about Jim Varney and his talent. He's a great actor, great actor. Yeah. But this one, it's cute. It's a cute film. I mean, it's not like something that I can watch with my nephews. Hey, what's up? You want to check this out? Something? All right. I found some things that it took me a while to get into his comedy, because I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, he made movies, because I remember him doing just commercials, and he did all these, but I didn't see all his movies. Mm-hmm. I would end up seeing his films on TV.
Right.
So, and
I think this one, wasn't this a made for TV movie? Didn't it go straight to TV?
This is the last theatrical one.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Oh, this is the last of his whole series of what movies he did. The last one.
The with his contract with Disney, or like Walt Disney or the Touchstone. I can't remember. Not that, but yeah, this was the last one. If it would have made money, it would have probably been more. But after this, they were all straight to video.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that much I can say. There's not that, I mean, it's a cute, you know, it reminded me of like all the personalities, how good he was with that. I enjoyed towards the end. It was like, you know, the lady, and then the you know, all these other person. I mean, he was so good at that. And then I started laughing. I was like, oh, that's what he was so funny about. Just you know. But like I said, it's a cute film. It's a good for Halloween for the children.
Yeah.
So Santos, now I need to know why you were going to choose it for your podcast.
Well, because the reason why I would have chosen it is because I know Freddie would never have seen it. Because the time when this came out, the 90s was very much the point of where Freddie was, you know, already out of high school, dating. So he's not going to take his date to go see Ernest Scared Stupid. You know?
I wasn't going to get nothing.
I would love to be on that date.
And if he did, you know, his date would have left him being like, what, you know, so that's why, like, there's a lot of these like 90s, like movies, you know what I'm talking about? Sandlot, Mighty Ducks, stuff like that, Little Giants, so that's what I'm going to try to do next. So that's why I would have done this. For me, I'm not sure where we're going to go with more of the film, but I just want to point out, I love this film, but it's going to sound like I hate this movie, but I love it. I mean, Back to the Future, I love that film, but I've always found things that just like bother me, like, why this, why that? It doesn't make any freaking sense. So, but yeah, like with what was your question again? I don't even know. I got this.
No, we just, you know, your overall, just like your overall thoughts, your personal experience, the first time you saw this and whatnot.
All right. I didn't get to see this in the theaters because my mom hated Ernest. Okay. Not a fan of Ernest. My mom is very much like, she hates the gross humor. Yeah. Anything with, you know, that just looks like throw up, vomit, farting, all that stuff. Hated it. Like, so I could never watch Ernest. I never got to see the camp one. She wouldn't let me rent it. Christmas, any of those. That's so funny. If I wanted to see them, I had to go to my friend's house, and she'd get mad if it'd be on TV. I started watching it. She'd be like, "Ya paga eso, quítalo, like turn it off," you know.
I love the idea of your mom protecting you so vehemently from Ernest.
Yeah, she just, and it sucks. So this one, my friend had it on video. So when it first came out, so that's how I watched it. I went over to my friend's house and we loved it. We would watch it all the freaking time. It was like one of those films that like we would do like our home versions of movies, and we almost made this movie at the time.
I wish you would have.
So
who's our third guest there that just joined us?
We got some.
Well, this one right here is Remy, my littlest one. The other one on the floor, Milo. He's telling he's telling me for a snack. He probably wants some gummies. I'm not gonna give it to him, so now he's just throwing himself on the floor.
Hey, I want some gummies too, man.
It's funny. I remember Jim Varney and all the Ernest stuff from when I was a kid too. I don't remember this movie specifically, but I remember his face. I remember the costume. I remember his little catchphrases, the "you know what I mean" and all that stuff.
Know what I mean?
I did remember there being a Vern involved. There's no Vern in this movie, which is sad, disappointing.
Happy Valentine's Day. Be mine, Vern.
But
sorry, Tyler.
Yeah, kind of like what you were saying, Freddie. It's like, I don't really know what else to say about this. Because it's just like, it is just sort of like a silly kids movie. And I'm sure I loved it when I was a kid. And I had fun as an adult in the way that you would watching a movie like this, you know? Like, yeah. But it's like, it's not a bad movie. It's just
to Santos's mom's point, I feel like Jim Varney's humor, like today, they're so good at making a kids movie relevant for adults as well. Yeah. And I feel like some of these movies in the 90s, they just didn't hit that well for adults. And so Jim Varney's humor is like way more towards kids. Like I had the privilege of watching this with my kids, and so I got to see it through their lens a little bit again, which made it better for me.
Yeah.
Okay. But Jim Varney wasn't hitting with me. Like I wasn't really catching on to that, and but it was fun to see it again through like the eyes of a kid in some way.
Yeah. Well, what interests me was it opened my eyes more to like this. No, because I was like, what happened to him? Like, so I kind of went back and researched, and he's a good friend with Robin Williams. There's this piece of them on YouTube, and they're both just hilarious. It's like Robin Williams being Jim Varney, but
Oh, this is what it's like back here. We're just hanging, fishing. Yeah, I'm just crew. We just rubbing elbows back here at these stars.
We're Teamster replacements. We're stand-ins for Teamsters. We're part of this whole thing, the program here.
That's it.
Job trainees.
I bet
The
it.
hell's wrong? That thing ain't adjusted.
Their personalities are so alike, which was Robin Williams way
you can
out
tell, like, obviously everyone knows the quick wit that Robin Williams had, but you can tell that Varney's got some like wits about him. Like,
there. Oh, totally.
he's a witty dude. He's a clever guy.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were
And-
friends, but I could see that for sure. Like, they're both very animated and big movements and obviously big
Funny
facial
voices,
movements and
funny
stuff.
faces.
Yeah.
No, but that's what's awesome about him because he's a character actor. So
Mhm.
you get that cool little montage of him doing all his like characters that he does, the voices, like both the ladies and then like the Australian outback guy in
Yeah.
the military. So it's cool because that's what he was. He was a character actor, and
Right.
he's like what's happening right now in Hollywood. Like these TikTok stars, influencers are becoming like casted in movies now. Like that she's all that version that they
right.
did. Now he's all that. They like she wasn't an actress, but because she was an influencer, they put her in the movie. Jim Varney was like the first like viral star to get his own career because that's all he was. He was doing commercials. That's how he started.
And not only that, I just noticed that when he would do his commercials, he would get up on the front of the camera, and that was never like done in back in
Like,
those days.
directly.
Yeah, directly on the camera, right in like how we do today. He was so advanced. Like now we do that. Think about it, you guys.
true
Now we have
visionary.
this. Yeah, now we have these cell phones, and we put them in front of
Yeah.
our faces, and we're doing exactly what he was doing. Back.
So
in
I
the-
can't remember his commercials. I didn't remember that they came first. What did he? What was he hawking? What was he? Just anything?
Everything, bro.
McDonald's.
Everything.
Oh, okay.
No. He never did McDonald's like anything. Well, maybe
He did
when
later on.
Splash
later
Mountain.
on.
When Splash Mountain came out, you're right. He,
No.
he did. 'Cause he for Disney, that's how he with that whole career. When they first opened Splash Mountain at Disneyland, he did it. But he did like everything because he was local at first. So before we all saw him, he was from whatever area. But then he
Squirts.
went
Yeah,
national.
He's selling soda pop Squirt commercial. He would
Squirt, Squirt was
Yeah.
one.
Oh,
one of them.
that's awesome.
But then he would even do like the local dealerships, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, like restaurants.
He's a hustler, man.
Yeah,
I
he
respect
would
it.
do.
because everybody enjoyed his. What he wanted to do is bring comedy to these ads, and that's what he was doing. He was bringing comedy, simple comedy. Hey, it's Varney. What are you doing, man? Hey, you need a dishwasher? Wash it.
I love that. What's that? Hey, Vern.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Hey, Vern, what are you doing? My favorite one is when he's like on the window. That one was, and then the window falls.
Oh.
And it,
Yeah, he would always get hurt in his commercials.
Yeah.
Sounds
He would
about
be
right.
like, he would be doing the handyman commercial ones too, he would get, so yeah. I mean, and that's what happened probably. See what happened to him. He was doing these ad commercials and then he got into, but he was a very good actor. I mean, he studied acting for a long time. He did radio. Voice.
You know how Disney found him? So it was an event. I can't remember. I think it was like a sporting event, something huge, right? And there was going to be 2 special guests there because it was for that area. Well, one of the special guests was Mickey Mouse, right? So Mickey Mouse was going to be there. The other one was Jim Varney being Ernest because he was local to the area. So when they brought out Mickey Mouse and then they brought out Ernest got a much bigger response than Mickey.
All right.
So the Disney peeps that were there were aware to that and be like, huh? And all they saw was dollar signs. Like, dude, this guy's getting a bigger response than the freaking mouse. Like, so that's how they signed him on to a 4-picture deal. And he even had his own TV show, short-lived, but you could find it on YouTube called Hey Vern, It's Ernest. And he wanted to be an actor from the early days and it never worked out. And then finally, I think one of his buddies like, hey, come help me do this commercial, do a character, blah, blah, blah. And then he did it and it was a hit. And that's where he developed his Ernest character. But yeah, that's how Disney found him and they gave him a 4-picture deal. And if he would have did well, like I said, with this film, they would have probably signed them on for more, but each film slowly made less until this one really like dropped.
It is.
Like it made
it's pretty easy for his character to wear out its welcome, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Hey,
Yeah.
but here we are talking about him.
Yeah, it's true.
There you go. But
And,
this film
lives
became
on.
a cult classic. It's
Yeah.
a huge. People love it now.
Well, I don't see anybody like what he's doing today. I mean, like you say, the influencers, but influencers compared to the real actor, I mean, there's a big difference.
Yeah, because he was an actual actor, so that's how he pulled it off.
Like trained and everything.
But he was
yeah.
a viral star. Like you could say, if he existed today, like let's just say we changed the time frame, it was like a YouTube guy doing videos.
Yeah.
Now let's bring him in and give him a movie.
Right.
It's the same aspect, But the difference is this guy was an actor from the get-go. He was a serious actor, theater and all of that. But
because at the time it was like you wouldn't dream of just putting yourself on TV like that if you weren't trained. But now, like you guys were saying, everyone has a camera, so everyone thinks they should be on screen. I mean, look at us. We're all four of us are all sitting here recording ourselves. So
But see, that's the beauty that we can do it. Yeah, it's the beauty. We're not waiting for anyone. We just pick up the camera and do it yourself.
It's great. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just at the time it was like you would have had to like have money and access to this equipment. So like if you're not trained, why would you even think to do that? You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, it's a pretty wild story. I didn't know any of that. Thanks for the education.
Yeah, no problem, man.
So Freddie mentioned that that Jim Varney and Robin Williams are friends. That was something I certainly, as I was watching this, I couldn't help but draw the comparison based off of their sort of comedy styles, as we talked about, sort of their mannerisms, the faces, the voices, the characters. And so I want to introduce a segment called What's in the Soup. And what this is it's inspired by the cooking shows where you take a taste of the soup and you're trying to name the ingredients in it. For Ernest Scared Stupid, that's the soup. And so the question is, what are things that you noticed from other movies that they kind of used and were inspired by that you noticed in this movie? Freddie.
Movies, the things that were inspired by this movie for today's?
No, things that you notice as you're watching the movie, like, oh, they took that from, this other movie.
Oh, from my movie. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what.
Or you could go backwards. Anything that seemed familiar, you're like, oh, they've redone that in this way, or anything that you thought felt familiar.
Well, I'll say while Freddie's thinking about it, I know the first thing I thought, I was like, okay, the milk is the cure. Like when we see the chocolate milk spill in the grocery store, I'm like, okay, he's afraid of milk. And I just was immediately, I was like, okay, that's where M. Night Shyamalan got the water bit for Signs. It's like some innocuous everyday item that ends up being the hero. May or may not be true, but that's what I'm going to choose to believe.
We're on to you, M. Night Shyamalan.
I like to.
We know you watch Ernest,
so M. Night Shyamalan, big Ernest fan. It's apparent.
That's out.
I mean, you could say kids fighting back, trying to save the day. Like we'll just say, I don't know, Stranger Things. They probably saw this and be like, look, here we go. You know, hey, in the beginning, one of the kids, they're going home, right? And one kid gets caught by the goblin. I mean, the troll.
True. Yeah,
that's what happens in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
They're going home, and one by himself.
The troll lives in a tree.
There you go. Oh, see, there you go. Look, it's all connected. It was Ernest was first, bro.
I hope our boy. I hope he's getting royalty checks.
Yeah,
being so blatantly ripped off.
Oh, dude.
Well, you mean his family because he's gone.
I didn't know that even.
Oh, you didn't know he passed away?
No. Maybe
he died, dude, long ago.
He died at my age.
Oh, in
2000.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a heavy smoker. So
yeah,
he went through a treatment, and then he was a fighter, and then they actually took one of his lungs out, and of course, the body can't survive with just one lung, and just due to complications to that, he passed. But 50 is still so young, man.
So young,
I think it would like the cult, like it's a cult following with these films. I think if he were still around, people would be interested in knowing about, because that's what's happening with these older actors and people who have been around and have these, they become reinvented. I mean, rediscovered,
right?
And people get to know, more about their life. But
that's like the whole reason we started this podcast, is like we realized there was so much stuff out there that we could easily access, right? And so we're just like, let's start this club, let's start watching stuff, let's quit watching the same old stuff on Netflix. I can only watch New Girl so many times. So
You do run out of stuff on Netflix. Seriously, sometimes I'm like,
Yeah.
I've seen everything here. What's going on? You know, I'm going to go to YouTube and see what's up.
My issue is like there's so many stuff that I have yet to see, but then I'm be like, you know what? I'm gonna go through Parks and Rec over again and watch that whole
my
series.
man, yeah. I've actually been like telling myself I can't watch that again for a while because I just had rewatched it so much. I'm like,
I'm doing it right now, bro.
Yeah.
I'm on
Well, I
season
don't
3
blame
right
you.
now.
During the pandemic, I rewatched Breaking Bad.
Nice.
I
So
just-
our boy Matt Weiler at the top there. I don't know
Yes.
if he's seen Breaking Bad yet.
oh my god!
Let me get into my. Let me get into what I was going to say.
Moving right along here.
Moving along.
We'll have Ben edit that out. No, some of the things that I noticed in this movie was that I felt like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets maybe got some ideas of this beast wandering around, turning kids to stone, you know? And maybe J.K. Rowling needs to pay the estate of Jim Varney some money. But also there's that scene where this beast is like luring kids with the voices of other kids.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
So that was
Yeah,
kind of like
right.
it, right?
Somewhat, yeah. It
That was like
That
Pennywise, yeah.
Pennywise.
I'm not a scary
Pennywise,
movie
yeah.
guy, so I haven't seen it.
Poltergeist, bro. Poltergeist.
Mm.
Here's what I mean by that. So there's the scene where the girl is like, oh, I'm going to look under the bed. She looks under the bed.
Oh, right.
Mr. Cuddles, whatever is there. And she goes back and she turns and the troll is there. That's what happened. Remember the clown? The kid looks under the bed. The clown's not there. When he goes up, the clown's behind him and it chokes him, this and that. Dude,
Yeah.
that was so
Okay.
out of Poltergeist.
I wonder,
right.
it wouldn't
Wow.
surprise me if they pulled some stuff like that, you know, like directly pulled from movies like Poltergeist, because in the opening credits, they show like there's like a bunch of clips from like classic horror movies and then
Oh,
Ernest
yeah.
reacting
Nosferatu
to
and all
him.
that. Yeah.
which I thought was
Dude,
funny.
dude,
I liked
dude.
to think of it as him seeing these terrible things happening and doing nothing about it. Just like,
He's
I
scared
was
stupid.
cracking up.
Right?
Can't do
Scared
anything.
stupid.